My name is Paula Lopez, and well, my life has been quite unusual. Anyways, here's my drama life. I was born on January 2nd of 2003 in Guatemala City to the Lopez family. As far as I'm aware, my family before me were all born and raised in Guatemala, but that part was about to change. A year after I was born, my brother came to the world, and as you can guess, my sister and I were both not thrilled about the baby. This completed our family. We're a family of 5. There's me, my brother who's the sporty one, my sister who is probably the nice one, and my mom and dad. We are a very interesting family, to say the least. Our life has a complex history. You'll find out why soon enough. When I was 2 years old, we moved to Richmond, Virginia in the US. I don't remember most of it because I was a baby, but according to my mom, it was probably one of the scariest experiences. It was the first time that we experienced life outside of Guatemala, and they barely spoke the language. Those 6 months were days to my mother, and she was happy to know that we would soon return home. I was 3 when we moved back, and at that moment, my life became that of a common Guatemalan. The family was one of the most important things in our lives, as we saw them nearly every day. My grandpa came over Monday nights, my cousins had sleepovers on weekends, we went out for lunch, and we went through life doing everything together. It was like a routine. Our lives were completely connected with theirs, and it was something incredibly special. Through these years, I grew up alongside a group of friends, and we grew closer as the years wore on. I knew my neighbors from a young age, and it felt like I lived in a giant bubble, because I believed that I would grow up alongside these people. But I didn't know this was incredibly far away from the truth. It was 2011, and 5 years had passed since we had moved back. I had amazing friends and was enjoying every day. Throughout this time, my dad had been gaining recognition within his office and was promoted until it was impossible to continue rising due to the restricted amount of positions in the Guatemalan branch of the company. So they told my father that we had to leave, and that this time, we most likely were not coming back. Little did we know, it was a blessing, because 2 years later, the branch was closed and all the people there got fired. We left for Switzerland in early August, and this time, we knew it'd be goodbye for a long time. I was not aware of the enormousness of the situation. I didn't know what this meant for me. I just thought I was going to the land of chocolate and cheese. But while my brother and I were excited, my sister and mom were not. They were saddened by the loss of their friends and family. I was 8, and I didn't know how to speak English, so it wasn't easy to fit into an international speaking school. I felt left out and had to work 100 times harder to make friends. Thankfully, I had Ilya, someone who had the same difficulty with the language, and we became best friends. I met my best friends while I was there. They are the 6 most important individuals in my life who are not of blood, and that still applies to me every day. There was a gigantic amount of upsides to the move. I learned English, found my best friends, and, well, we got a dog. Probably the best part of it all. 2 years later, we were informed that we were to move again, due to the difficulties within the company in which my dad worked. We needed to reside in Mexico in order to fix it and gain residence there, as we were never going back to Guatemala. I remember the day I had to say goodbye. I remember the feeling of confusion as I said goodbye to my friends. That last day, I went to my best friend's house. It was probably the most heartbreaking part of it all, thinking that I would never see them again, but most of all, that I would never see Ilya again. I like to think of it as if I left a piece of myself there, with my friends. The move to Mexico was different. I would say that the whole family was slightly excited about moving closer to home, and the best part of it all was the food. But over time, Mexico did not turn out as well as we'd hoped for. As I went into the school, I realized that the concept of a kid who moved around the world wasn't familiar to the kids at our school, and I was once again left out. Most of my friends weren't Mexican and were new to the school like me. Through this year, a saddening series of events followed me. I was bullied, and I didn't have many friends. Therefore, I was relieved when they told us that we were moving, nearly 11 months since we had gotten there. We were to move to the Philippines, a place that no one in our family knew much about. We thought we would live in a wooden house at the edge of the beach. As I was on that plane, I promised myself that this time I was going to fit in, and that I would not get made fun of. And I held true to that promise. There were 238 kids in my grade, so it was easier to find my group of people. Throughout the first days, I found my first friend, Ria, and through her, I found my group. but over time I grew tired of faking fitting in. So I connected with my friend Dylan, who introduced me to the kindest and dumbest group of boys that I've ever met, and they became the best friends while I was there. But I still wasn't myself. I pretended to be tougher and started using negative language. I got anxiety, and my self-image incredibly decreased. I found myself alone at home and had a hard time keeping it together. Through the time in the Philippines, I made unnecessary sacrifices, and in that process, I lost myself. I was changing my personality between 3 different friend groups, and then was someone completely different at home. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, not even in my family. This all changed the second year in the Philippines when my best friend moved there as well. He became instantly popular in the school, and alongside him, I became more popular. Therefore, I had to become even faker, and through all of that, many problems were caused between my best friend and I, especially through recent saddening events that were going on in our life. These series of events triggered a slight bit of trauma, a trauma that I'm still trying to get over from today. No one except my group of best friends knew, not even my family. I felt like I would be judged and seen different, so only 5 people in my life knew, and the people who were going through the same thing as I was. It was like a giant spiral, and well, I was dragging people with me. This went on for another year. Until the last 3 months of the grade 7 school year, I started to hang out with other girls, people who accepted me for who I was, and who made me feel good. With them and my best friend, I started moving forward and caring for myself once again. But sadly, in June, I was to move again, and had to restart everything. Just as everything was getting better, and I was giving up. I was losing relationships with my family, and I felt alone. I moved to Busan in July of 2017, and I was determined to remain myself no matter what happened. And I made that promise to myself, but it was troublesome at some points. I was so used to not being myself that I felt completely lost. At this school, I have been pushed to extend my hobbies, and sometimes I miss the attention that I used to get while I was in the Philippines. But eventually, I found comfort in not being under the spotlight, because I discovered myself in other aspects that I was not fully aware of. I was able to fully and truly be myself as time wore on, and sometimes it wavers, but I think so far I have been successful. My friends here are probably the people who have accepted me the most. Even if they do judge sometimes, they're still there, and it is saddening to see them go at the end of the school year. These people have taken me in and called me their favorite fake Korean, and so many more things that I will never forget, because through their warmth and support, I was able to once again find myself. My whole life has been a giant amount of moving and traveling, but through all of the countries, I have been able to find different parts of myself and truly learn what different types of living are like. My house is filled with different foods and memories of the places I've lived in, and it shows how over time things work out. Loss is just a way of the world telling you that it's time to move on. It's something to motivate you, and something that will create a greater sense of satisfaction once you achieve the life with the people and things that have been there for you. And that is family, friends, and everyone else that has helped you become who you are. It is not perfect, but it just seems to be. Currently, I do not know if I'm moving again, but I hope I am, one last time before I graduate, to experience different things and meet different people. Looking back at all of this, there are some parts I regret, but I wouldn't change it. And that is the experience as a third culture kid.